Whew! The bottom really dropped out from underneath this show, didn't it? And this episode did not help. Although, to be fair, interest dropped considerably even last week with the incredible T'Challa as Star-Lord episode. It seems that no matter how good animation is done, Western adult audiences just don't like it. Oh my God. I mean, Star Wars The Bad Batch is really good, although that show had a pacing issue. But still, it never really caught on, even though it's like really quality Star Wars storytelling. And this makes me very nervous for Star Wars Visions. I mean, this is a niche audience. I don't know if Marvel should have started their own animation division, quite frankly. Maybe they should have waited to see how this turned out. Maybe they actually haven't started it. Maybe they were like, we're going to do it, and let's talk about it to hype up this new show. But maybe after they see this distinct lack of interest, they might be like, I think maybe outsourcing it to other studios is just fine. I knew this episode wouldn't trend. In my review, I've only seen the first 3 episodes, so from here on out, we're all in virgin territory. But I'd seen through this one, and I thought this one was weak, like pretty weak sauce. So I knew that it wouldn't trend today, and the reason is that there's no clear idea to grab onto. You might have noticed, Jeffrey Wright doesn't have that thing where he goes, this is the moment that a new timeline was formed. You never have that, because it's a little all over the place. And also, the other problem is that I think that the mystery, this is a spoiler breakdown, by the way, so we're going to be talking freely about some of the surprises in the show. But the mystery of who's murdering all these Avengers or Avengers recruits, it's impossible to solve because they don't give the audience enough clues to play along. So that creates kind of a passive experience. I mean, this episode trades heavily on nostalgia and Easter eggs, which is part of the Marvel formula of success. But you can't lean on those things too heavily, which I'm afraid I would accuse this episode of doing. And it's written by A.C. Bradley and Matthew Chauncey, who did the last 2 separately. And they did a fantastic, although some of the dialogue here is so good. I mean, I really loved having Coulson back. I've missed your quips, Coulson, and they were beautiful here. Fury got a couple of good ones, too. But before we talk about who showed up and who didn't for the cast, or who was asked back and who wasn't, according to Dave Bautista, I didn't like the animation style here either. It was different than the first 2 episodes. It became even more cartoonish, and they have this weird thing. You can see it particularly in this shot with Black Widow's hair, where they have this like white outline, and it's funny because they did that in the Ang Lee Hulk movie. And he's like, oh, it's like comics, and everyone was like, thanks, but I hate it. So it's weird that they decided to do it here as well. So this episode, while it has its moments for sure, it's just, I think they wrote it from again, it's like just because you can, should you, one of those things. I think they like the idea of an Avengers murder mystery and what would happen if the Avengers weren't in the MCU, which of course this episode kind of touches on very lightly. Basically Loki would rise to power with no one to stop him. But still, there's not that very clear-cut sales pitch, right? What's the elevator pitch? This episode doesn't have, I guess the elevator pitch is what would happen if all the Avengers were killed, but it happened so quickly. Like, it's not like we saw our favorite characters being hunted down. I mean, they died. They were not the main characters. So maybe perspective is an issue as well. Could have maybe been done a little better. Could have been done maybe a little bit better. All right, so let's take a look. I'm curious for your thoughts on the episode as well. All right, so anyway, so great to see Samuel L. Jackson back here. He's fantastic. That guy, he always shows up. I love him. And I was so impressed that Michael Douglas came in. Although I'm sure he's like, is that what you really think my eyebrows look like? He'd be like, oh, I can't wait to see the cartoon version of me. What? Then Lake Bell as Scarlett Johansson's Black Widow. She's such a good Poison Ivy. So good that I'd love to see her and Kaylee Cuoco try their hand at the characters in live action. But occasionally, I just heard Poison Ivy. And while she sometimes got Scarlett Johansson's intonations right, like in certain moments, you're like, oh yeah, Scarlett Johansson does say stuff like that. But it's really weird to see another actress doing a Scarlett Johansson impression, especially with the lawsuit going on, right? They're like, you're the new Scarlett Johansson. And Lake Bell's like, and Elizabeth Olsen's like, I supported Scarlett. Why are you stabbing her in the back, Lake Bell? And Lake Bell's like, I gotta eat. I don't work as much as the rest of you. I have mostly a voice work career now. And you're like, you still do. Stand up. So I don't know. She did a fine job. I thought the voice wasn't great. I thought the character design didn't particularly look like Black Widow, in my opinion. So it didn't quite work. I think that's one of the other things that hurts this episode. Again, different Tony Stark, was Robert Downey Jr., is he just giving up on this role? Which is crazy to me since he had such a Vice-like, you're going to have to kill me first grip. And they're like, you say, says Kevin Feige. Clark Gregg, Frank Grillo, Jeremy Renner, all great. Mark Ruffalo, Tom Hiddleston. He did a particularly good job. I thought that it was so good the way he kind of has this, I realized he has like this dark, like shady quality to his voice as Loki, especially because he's being evil Loki here. It was great. Jamie Alexander, I hope she comes back some other time because she had like one line and she's like, I gotta eat too. It's weird to have some, and then they had a different Betty Ross. I'm not surprised about that. I don't think they'll be bringing back Liv Tyler. I don't see that happening. But anyway, it was weird to me that they didn't get William Hurt to be General Ross, and they couldn't get Brie Larson to do Captain Marvel either. I thought that was just so weird. I was like, it's just, it really took me out of it. It was just made them feel like that wasn't the characters. So, that's one of the problems that Marvel has by having one big story and so sticking to it. They reap huge benefits from that, but it doesn't give them the wiggle room that other franchises have. Like over in DC, there are so many Batmans and different characters all at once. Like they have them one is in video games, one's in live action, one's on television, one's in, animation. And so everybody's like, yeah, that's just the Batman we're dealing with right now in the moment. So we're used to that. But with Marvel, Brie Larson, love it or hate it, and I think she's fine, but she's Carol Danvers, and so damn it, she should be Carol Danvers. So I really feel that they should have just had everybody show up. Cost be damned. These movies make so much money, they could do it. All right, so we have, this happens in 1 week. They say, the Watcher says there were 3 stories in 1 week. And I didn't know this, did you? That all those movies that Iron Man 2, Thor, and The Incredible Hulk took place, they overlapped each other in terms of, the stories. So I was like, what? So anyway, they have this thing, this is now the Marvel font. Whenever they have like anything they want to put up a location, they used it. They used it in Endgame. They used it in Black Widow, and they're using it here. So the 3 stories, I kind of liked the 3 stories. We're getting a little ahead of myself. We start with the scene, of course, from Iron Man 2 with the donut, which, of course, was a great scene. We have, but now it's from the perspective of Nick Fury and Natasha. And so it's played pretty much the same way, even down to injecting him in the neck, which was wildly irresponsible, but here it goes horribly wrong. And he's dead. He's dead. So that's our hook. That's our hook opening. And they're like, we couldn't afford Robert Downey Jr. to do the voice, so we killed him. We killed the character here too. So we have, the Watcher showed up a lot this episode. He made a lot of cameos. He was like, I'm not showing up enough. People are forgetting that I'm the star of the show, really. So he's like, woo. So we have these really great little illustrations that I always appreciate. They're like a little Marvel Golden Book. It's like almost like a comic, but for all ages. Although I wouldn't categorize this show as for all ages. Are any of you watching it with like small children, right? Do they like this show? I don't think it has, I think it's for adults. So anyway, I liked the way the Watcher paraphrased our 3 characters. A genius battled his demons both inside and out. And we go, haha, that reminds us how Marvel was unwilling to tackle the demon in the bottle storyline with any real grit. They should have. That would have been fantastic. I still feel bad that Robert Downey Jr. didn't get to truly explore that. He would have been, that's like right up his alley. He has that's one of the reasons that Jon Favreau argued for him to be cast. He has the real life struggle with that. So then anyway, while the world met the monster hiding in the man, Hulk, which we just pretend we forget about Edward Norton. Who's Edward Norton? And someone with too many script notes for Kevin Feige. And then a godly prince fell to earth. All right, and then they show our 2 our S.H.I.E.L.D. agents who everybody's always like, yeah, you could be on the team too, and who also get framed. I thought that was interesting that's who Hank Pym decided to try and frame. And then they're like, there's a timeline when these mighty Avengers were created. I think it is time to move on to a new group of Avengers, by the way. These guys are great, but they've really milked them for all they're worth. I think it's time to bring in a new lineup. I'm very excited about that. All right, so Tony Stark was killed on a Monday. Tuesday, it's Thor time, baby. All right, so we have Mjolnir, which of course was one of the end credit sequences from the MCU, and Coulson's there. But Fury's a little busy because Natasha's been arrested, and of course Frank Grillo's back as Brock Rumlow, aka crossbones just to be basically a misogynistic jerk. He's a jerk to everyone. He's an equal opportunity jerk, but right now he's being a jerk to Natasha. So these are some nice shots. Still, the show has a very nice use of light. Although I feel they cheaped out a little bit on the animation here. I mean, look at everyone's legs and stuff. I mean, I'm like, come on, just because it's a wide shot doesn't mean you gotta, I don't know. All right, so he hands off. I can't believe he was able to get that out of evidence. So they have this cute scene, where she's in the truck and she's like trying to, I thought Lake Bell did this very well, but she's like, hey guys, let's mess around. You want to play some tunes? And she's like, oh, you're all too serious. Joker's like, that's my line. And she said, hold these. And I thought that was pretty good. And then meanwhile, who's trash talking her in the front seat? Frank Grillo's character. And then she takes everybody out. I thought this was very well choreographed, the action in this sequence. Although I did think it was unrealistic that not a single S.H.I.E.L.D. agent seemed to fight back. I was like, are you all just that shocked that it's a woman and she broke free? Come on. I mean, they didn't seem to put up a fight whatsoever. I think that would have made it seem a little cooler if she'd had a little resistance. So I don't know how she got out of the truck, by the way, but she got out. She's Houdini. And Frank Grillo is like, darn it, I'm never going to hear the end of this. All right, so this was one shot that I pulled in particular because I thought it was a really nice wide shot. And I actually went back. I'm trying to pull less stills because people aren't as interested in this show. So, I'm not going to be diving into it as much as I do the live action. But I was like, well, as long as I'm pulling this one with the sweet, sweet thunderstorm in the distance, I'll go and I'll pull this, little bass one because I thought that was a nice shot too. So anyway, Hawkeye's on the scene. And they're like, we got this. Let's wait and see if anyone shows up to get it. And I liked some of the ways that they subtly put some of the lore in. Like, for instance, Clint Barton's like, by the way, no one can lift it. And he said even this guy on the team who does CrossFit. And I thought that was pretty funny. I also like the line where Grillo in the last sequence, I have it in my notes here, said, save your spin for Pierce, who of course is Alexander Pierce, who has not yet been revealed in this timeline and maybe never will be because there are no Avengers to root him out to be a Hydra agent. So anyway, I love that they have the line, Nick Fury somewhere in here says, the thing that we should always do, hope for the best but prepare for the worst. And that's a great life mantra. Everybody should do that. I hope they have that on t-shirts in the S.H.I.E.L.D. gift shop. So while they're talking, one male supermodel infiltrates the base and Coulson's onto him. He's like, we have a man down, sound the alarms. And then we got a good look at him, a pretty good look. And it's just like the movie. So again, this leans heavily into nostalgia. You're like, oh yeah, I remember this sequence from the movie. Kenneth Branagh's like, you're welcome. So, and Coulson's like, oh, I see him. He's a Caucasian male, late 20s, with really great hair. And I love the way they use the lightning to kind of light this sequence. I hope, Taika Waititi does a more comedic take on the character. And as a Storm fan, I'm like, man, Storm's supposed to be getting all this lightning action. But Thor's using it very nicely. And this sequence does too. So he looks great. And so he says, with great hair. And this was great. And Nick Fury's like, excuse me? And I loved Clark Gregg nailed this delivery. He says, it's an accurate description, sir. He's gorgeous. And Nick Fury is like, fine, get eyes in the air. I want to point out, by the way, that the hair did not actually work in the live action version. So they are reanimating history here. I thought they had not yet cracked how to make Chris Hemsworth look his best. And so it's funny to me that they decided to focus on that. And they're like, yeah, well, that was a long time ago. Let's just remember it that way. So up in the air, which we also remember from the movie, Hawkeye has eyes on him and he's like, sir, Coulson wasn't lying about the hair, which I thought was great. They do this Fabio Vidal Sassoon moment, which I thought was hilarious. And I like this. This is a great shot. He's about to lift it. The hand on Mjolnir. Very well done. And then the lightning goes off behind Barton. And you think to yourself, that was a pretty good misdirect, that perhaps the lightning is what made him accidentally fire because it spooked him. But damn it, he's a professional. But, that's how it seems. That's what seems to be the case. And just as, the sky totally goes white, you see the arrow fly. That's pretty nice. And look at that. That's some Frank Miller Sin City artwork there. And he goes down with the lightning behind him. The lightning screams, no, not our Lord and Master. Okay, who's going to pick this up next? All right, and then Barton's like, whoa, I'm a professional. I didn't do that. And they're like, well, he's dead. And then look, this reminded me of when Wanda had all the scopes on her in WandaVision, right? Oh, they have the kill shot, head and heart. So it's looking bad. So he's locked up. He's locked up in there, and they're talking about it. And, it's Fury's two best people that he trusts outside of Coulson. So they go in, and he won't talk. And Nick Fury's like, he'll talk to me. So he's like, hey, wake up, Sleeping Beauty. And he's dead. He's dead. And I like that they cut to him in a slab on the morgue. And Coulson's like, was it a cyanide tablet? Because maybe he was a double agent. And Nick Fury's like, he had a family, damn it. He wouldn't take himself out. He wouldn't go out that way. And he said, then we have some more great lines here. This Thor stuff. I hope they continue to have fun with Thor. It's just really great. He says, I've got first Stark, now Muscle Beach. Oh, hilarious. Oh, the hits just keep on coming. I love it, I love it, I love it. And he said, I have a space corpse here that looks like a Chippendales dancer rotting on the next table over. And I thought the stuff about him smelling like lavender even when he was dead was a little bit crossing the line, quite frankly. I was like, Coulson, you got to get a grip on yourself. So Wednesday, we hit Wednesday. We've got now so far 3 dead Avengers, 3 people for the initiative. Now, I thought it was a really nice treat to bring back Betty Ross, who they actually didn't make look too much like Liv Tyler. A little bit, but just enough not like her that you weren't like, that's kind of mean to do to Liv Tyler. So anyway, it's nice. Also, past the Bechdel test, we have 2 women characters talking about something that has nothing to do with the guy. So I thought that was really great. I mean, it kind of has to do with Bruce Banner, but I think we'll have it count. And she's like, I need you to look at this for me. And she's like, why me? She goes, because you're good at keeping stuff off the grid. And I was like, it's Betty Ross. Like, what's going to happen here? I mean, I told you we're going to have a Hulkapalooza on the She-Hulk show. So I do wonder. And Betty Ross eventually becomes a Red Hulk as well. Last I read in the comics, she turned into a griffin or something. It's crazy. I mean, that Doctor Strange comic's pretty good. It just started. But I'm like, whoa, what a journey Betty's been on. So she's still human here. She's in her lab. She takes a look at it. I'm like, I can't believe that no one has looked at this yet. I mean, Hank Pym he doesn't have anyone working with him on the inside. You think they would have immediately spotted this and been like, So Betty Ross, that's such a funny name. That's her name. Betty Ross, it's a funny name. I think, isn't that the patriotic person who sewed the first flag, I think? That's Betsy Ross. But yeah, it's the same thing. Hilarious. All right, so anyway, she's like, I don't even think the serum got out. It was some kind of projectile. And they had some good dialogue there where Betty Ross is like, I'm not a ballistics expert, damn it. Go ask somebody else. I'm like, that's good dialogue. So Widow's walking out and she sees Stanley's Pizza Parlor, which was in the last Hulk movie. The last time they could make a solo one, because Universal still has the rights to making a solo movie. Just write them a check, Disney, for Pete's sake. You went and bought all of Fox to get the rest of the characters. You can't free up a Hulk solo movie? They're like, we worked around it. We're doing a Hulk TV show. You're like, okay. So Stanley's Pizza Parlor with Stan Lee, get it? Although it wasn't the Stan Lee cameo in the movie, interestingly enough. They had a fake Stan Lee. So she's like, oh, you have a side job? I don't know why she would think that. I mean, I guess because who would leave their stuff in there if it wasn't Bruce Banner? Although, didn't she probably think Bruce Banner was in there anyway? Quite frankly, I mean, where else would he be? Although I have to say, Betty Ross is a horrible liar. She's like, I don't know why that's there. Maybe a student left it there. Please go away. And Natasha's like, she's very suspicious, but first she gets a phone call. And I thought this was played nicely because Nick Fury has to tell her Barton's dead. So she has a moment and she's like, who do I need to kill? Because she's, that's her buddy from Budapest. We'll never get to see that. Damn it. All right, so she's like, so Fury says they're killing people who were recruits for the Avengers initiative. You're on the list, so's Banner. And, another great line, I'd be flattered if it wasn't now a hit list. And so she's like, I have a pretty good idea, actually, where Banner is. And Betty Ross is like, don't go in here. And I'm like, how do you think this is going to end, Betty? Don't embarrass yourself. But she does. And Widow says the same line that said to her by the Dora Milaje, move or you will be moved. And here comes animated Bruce Banner, who doesn't look really anything like Mark Ruffalo. And he's like, whoa, let's not fight. So we cut back, and they do this thing where they set up this cross-cutting to raise the tension on the two sequences, because neither one, I think, really is exciting on its own. So there's the Watcher, and Coulson's back from a coffee run, but it's a Bifrost. And who's out there? Loki with the Destroyer. Nice callback, and, all Thor's pals. And so this was again, I like these little exchanges, the character moments, where Widow, they're both dealing with bad stuff, and Widow's like, I'm dealing with General Ross and a bunch of snipers. And what do you got? And Fury says, Space Vikings. And she's like, show off. And then I thought it was great that, even the whole thing about the phone call interrupting the discussion with Loki and him saying, are you going to get that? That's great stuff. So some great shots here. Loki found another way to come to Earth, and he's like, I want retribution. I want to punish whoever killed my brother. So we have things escalate. So first, someone fires a shot, not from Ross's team, gets Bruce, and Loki takes out the casket of ancient winters, which we've seen before, his heritage from Jotunheim, the Iceland of the realms, the world tree, and all that. And then hits the fan for everybody. Bruce Banner goes full Hulk, and Loki opens fire. So he hulks it up, and then Loki goes full Elsa. She really has dominated the ice space. Good for her with her brand. But this was kind of gross. Hulk seems to, I don't know why this would kill him, but he starts to expand and get bigger and bigger until he explodes. They did that. Minimal gore. I'm impressed with how they handled that. But yeah, watching your boyfriend explode, pretty bad. So she's like, I thought he couldn't die because, he just bragged about it earlier in the episode, but he was wrong. So meanwhile, back with Fury and Loki, he's really iced up that area. I think it's interesting, he really didn't really want to have his ice giant heritage sometimes in the comics and even in some of the movies, but here he seems to be really embracing it. So Fury makes a deal with him, and he says, look, I'll get the guy who killed your brother, and then you can have your pound of flesh. And Loki says, I want the whole corpse. And you're like, I don't even want to know for what. All right, so anyway, again, here's this public library. It's new. For some reason, they're like, yes. She went from the university and ran off to this public library. And she asked Coulson for his password to get into the Avengers database. And so he acquiesces, and it's hashtag Steve, I heart Steve, 0704. That's a pretty good password. He's obsessed with Captain America, who hasn't been found yet, actually, as in terms of how the timeline worked out. And you'll find that out at the end of the episode. So I guess that's how legit Coulson was. He was a Captain America fan before he came out of the ice. So she's in. But she has amazing hearing, by the way. She heard the helicopter back at the university. Here she hears someone in the library. So we bring up these little animated versions of our favorite characters. We've got Coulson, Fury, Janet Van Dyne. I'm like, I wanted to see animated Michelle Pfeiffer. This reminds me of Mystique on the computer all the time. Mystique, she had amazing IT skills. The X-Men IT department, also run by Mystique. So Janet Van Dyne deceased, Maria Hill's in there, and then that is a crazy illustration of Robert Redford. I'm like, is that supposed to be Robert Redford? And they're like, shut up. All right, so she's like, how could someone have accessed this database yesterday who died 2 years ago? And I'm like, great question, S.H.I.E.L.D. security. Why wasn't her password and account disabled? So she tries to make a phone call, but she's attacked. And they do a good job with a misdirect here as well. You're like, is it an invisible villain? Because something's moving very quickly and taking her out. So she leaves a message, and she says, it's hope. It's all about hope. And so I, at that point, knew it was Hope Van Dyne. But Fury had to think about it a little bit longer. So you can see Loki's little ice palace he's made. He really did go full Elsa back there. But meanwhile, Fury's at Arturo's. He's got the room to himself. Oh, that's someplace else. This is some other diner. So he's in there by himself. But then Coulson sits down and he says, "There's one person left on the list. You're a part of the Avengers initiative," and that makes Fury think about, hey, there actually is somebody else, and he goes out and gets his 90s beeper, from Captain Marvel to summon her. And you think that he doesn't use it, but of course, or maybe I guess since he doesn't die, he uses it a little bit later. But it's a good planting a seed for the big the big thing at the end of the episode. So he decides he has a good idea. So he comes up with an idea, and he drives back to see Loki. And I thought this was very nice. This is one of the nicer shots. Very Trey Spielberg with the car lights. And I like the way it lit up the destroyer. And then when he turned on, his face lit up. It did a nice job with the lighting there. So he said, I want to talk to your boss. So that's only Thursday. So we get to Thursday, and we're in San Francisco. And the Watcher's there, and you see the Golden Gate Bridge and a cemetery. And of course, that's Ant-Man land. Also now, Shang-Chi land. Oh, exciting. So there's, sure enough, Hope Van Dyne's grave. I'm surprised they say Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. on it. You would think that you'd have to worry about, because of all the crazy stuff that happens with comic book stories, you'd think there would be a secure cemetery for S.H.I.E.L.D. agents. But there she is. And here comes Hank Pym, wearing the Yellowjacket armor, which, of course, Corey Stoll used for evil in the first movie. But here, Hank Pym's going to do it himself. And I thought the animation on this was real nice. I thought he looked really crazy, even with his mask down. To see his eyes in there, you were like, yeah, this is the guy. So I thought that was nice. And then again, there are those crazy eyebrows. And I'm like, it is Michael Douglas doing the voice. What a difference it makes. That's why it's so important to do that. And I have a lot of respect for Michael Douglas that he was like, sure, I'll do this voice in this animated show where you make my character a murderer. Why not? So they have a little back and forth, and I didn't even catch this. Some of you sent this to me. This is like the kind of deep Easter eggs that make people hardcore Marvel fans, like the super fans who see these movies 10 times in theaters. And that's where he says Hope Van Dyne died outside of Odessa. And some of you pointed out that in Winter Soldier, that was Black Widow on that mission when she came across Winter Soldier. So it's the idea that, although what do you say about Hope Van Dyne? Black Widow could take care of herself, but Hope Van Dyne got killed. Maybe she didn't have proper training. So anyway, boy, Bucky's going to have a lot to atone for when he comes out, when he reemerges in this timeline. Steve's like, he's forgiven for all murders, damn it. I love him. All right, so they have a lot of pointing, a lot of finger pointing in this scene. And he's like, first you take my wife, then you take my daughter, you took everything from me. And I'm like, he's not wrong to some degree. Maybe you should have better family counseling, especially since the people who were so affiliated with S.H.I.E.L.D. have amazing abilities. So he says, she missed her mother and you exploited that. So we have a little flashback as to how he pulled everything off. So there he is going into Tony Stark's neck, and then there he is hitting Hawkeye's hand before then killing him. That's pretty rough, Hank Pym. And then he goes into the Hulk. He shot himself into the Hulk, and he enlarged his heart. He embiggened his heart. Those little discs that we've seen. We all know that Ant-Man can be quite formidable when he wants to be with this technology. I'm waiting to see it in a movie. They keep teasing it and getting awfully close, but come on. And there he is fighting Black Widow, and who he obviously killed because, he killed her off screen, but it's implied because she doesn't show up again. So he goes to fight. He goes into like Yellowjacket little bug form, and he goes to fight Nick Fury, who swats him down like a bug. And he's a very good fighter. He look at it. Look at this flip. And I love, and he's blocking all the shots, does a superhero landing, and I absolutely love the line where Hank Pym starts to get a little nervous, and he says, "You're still pretty spry for a guy in a corner office." Oh, that was great. And again, great delivery from Michael Douglas. And then, because it's Loki secretly, really good job egging on Hank Pym to make him lose his temper. This was a great use of Loki, by the way. One of the best uses of Loki I've seen. I know some of you are upset that he's no longer evil. And when I see scenes like this, I can see what you feel that you've lost, because this is pretty impressive. But I really like Loki the way he is right now. So no complaints from me. But anyway, he says, I never cared about any of them, which was great. It was so cruel. And boy, he really makes Hank Pym upset. But then he finds himself fighting an army of Nick Furies who keep disappearing every time he strikes out at one. Then he tries to take off because he knows when he's beat, and he gets, here's your big Loki giveaway. Not only does a giant Loki appear in the sky, the Watcher should be behind him being like, hello, but ice, right? There's your big giveaway. And so Loki, he crashes to the ground in front of a bunch of laughing Nick Furies, laughing at him. That Loki. And then we see the illusion break and the real Nick Fury emerge next to him. And he's like, S.H.I.E.L.D. is bigger than one person. And I'm like, I don't know, this was two people. It's pretty bad. You should have some sympathy for Hank Pym, although he now murdered a bunch of people himself. So pretty bad. So he hands him over to Asgard. I don't think that's going to go well for Hank Pym at all. Unless they suddenly get great new technology there. It'll be a little Invincible-like. All right, no spoilers for Invincible. Okay, so anyway, so Nick Fury's like, get off my planet, take your hammer and go. Although I'd be like, no, still no one can lift it. But Loki says, I think I'm going to stick around. And then Friday, sure enough, the end of the week, it took a week, not even the weekend. So we're at the United Nations where we have seen T'Challa, but now instead Loki takes the stage and he says, and one day you've all all the countries of the world have come together under me. And he does that famous line he has where humanity wants to be ruled. It's in your nature, and allow me to help you. And you can see these Asgardian ships over Paris and his army in front of the White House, and he gets super evil. I love it. And he's like, allow me to take over. They did a nice job with that. But that means we need some new Avengers. So we're at a S.H.I.E.L.D. compound, and we see all these caskets lined up with their logos on them. And Nick Fury's like, I'm going to go get a different group of Avengers. As long as there's us, there's some of us around, we can do it. And there he finds the Cap shield, which is the same illustration, which is weird to me because these are supposed to be different, multiverses each episode. Yeah, that's the exact same illustration that they use. Maybe they're trying to save money, but I'm like, are they, or are they connected somehow? Because we know there's going to be some crossover towards the end of the season. So I thought that was interesting. So he finds Cap, and then right there, it's a 2-for-1 sale. He gets 2 captains as Captain Marvel shows up without Brie Larson's voice, which is like, come on. If she's going to be Captain Marvel and she's not the best one, she should at least be the most committed. We should respect her commitment to the character. Although, again, maybe she wasn't asked. So, she's a team player in other ways, as you'll see soon. All right, so anyway, I like the physicality of Captain Marvel, Carol Danvers, and sure enough, she gets her gloves done, and when she does like the punch that she did in her movie, they cut to black. And I thought that was fun, but it threw me out that it wasn't Brie Larson. I was like, come on, she needs everyone to back her in this character. She should always be there to show up. So that's my breakdown of the episode. Again, it trades heavily on nostalgia. Not even so much Easter eggs, because it's all looking backward. So a lot of heavy nostalgia. But again, I think that from a business perspective, and even to some degree a creative perspective, because it wasn't that thrilling an episode, it wasn't as constructed as well as it should be. But I will say that A.C. Bradley and Matthew Chauncey are fantastic dialogue writers. So what do you think? How do you think this episode could have been done better? Do you think if they'd done it from the perspective of those being murdered, maybe it would have been a little bit better? I think maybe the stakes would have seemed higher if they had done that. All right, share those thoughts down below. Subscribe today. And of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.